You're listening to the Archaeology Podcast Network.
Welcome to Screens of the Stone Age, the podcast where scientists review movies about prehistoric people. I'm Dr. Joshua Lindell. I am a paleoanthropologist studying Neanderthals, and I'm here with...
I'm Dr. Kimberly Pomp. I am a bioarchaeologist. I study the human skeleton, health and disease, and evolution.
And I'm Dr. Ross Barnett, ancient DNA specialist interested in Pleistocene mammals.
And by the time this episode comes out, it will be October, and we have a tradition where every episode in October, we do scary movies. And so I'm so excited that we have two... I'm not excited because they're scary, because everybody who's heard this podcast before knows I don't like scary movies, but the movies that we've chosen are not actually scary. They rarely actually are. They are horror movies.
The scariest thing is that they were ever made, I think.
What I'm so happy about is that we're getting back to our roots with some really terrible movies about archaeology and some terribly written archaeologists, which is the most fun thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we're reviewing Legend of the Bog from 2009. Now, the one of the ways you can tell that a movie's terrible is that it has multiple different names. And so you might come across this movie called Assault of Darkness. There might be other names as well. But who wants to summarize this movie for us?
I do.
Okay.
Well, I don't, but
Okay.
I will. So this film, front and center, has the legendary thespian Vinnie Jones, well known for his Shakespearean stage work. Not really. He's a former hardman footballer who is very good at playing tough people, because he is, in real life, quite a tough guy, I think. Well, for a footballer anyway. And so, yeah, this is one of his... I mean, after watching this film, I immediately went to IMDb and transcribed the IMDb scores of every one of Vinnie Jones's films and put them into Excel, because it's not real unless it's in a spreadsheet. And I graphed it, and it's pretty much the opposite of the famous climate hockey stick. So he starts off in his career with Lock, Stock, Snatch, She's the Man, and then it rapidly kind of just degrades. It's almost like a radiocarbon decay curve. We could probably work out the half-life of Vinnie Jones's film career from this data. But yeah, it kind of bottoms out with stuff that's like at 3.4, 2.9, 4.4, that kind of stuff. Which is what he seems to do now, and it pays the bills. I have a lot of time for Vinnie Jones. I think he's quite charismatic, quite good. And this is one of his I think it's 3.9 or something. Anyway, it's one of his lesser works.
It's 3.1 right now, as I'm looking
3.1.
at it on IMDb.
So yeah, it's not a classic, but he is paid to do it, and more power to him. He's probably the best actor in this, which says an awful lot. Anyway, we open with Vinnie Jones. He's dressed in camouflage, and he has a bow and arrow, which he never is seen with at any other point in the film.
No.
Weirdly. But he has a bow and arrow. He's in the woods, and it's clearly a forestry plantation, because it's all non-native woodland in Ireland. I think it's probably filmed. And he sees like a Bigfoot-looking creature. He shoots. I mean, I wasn't sure what the hell was going on at first. It turns out that it's not just... Was it water or was it petrol? I couldn't figure out, because he does both. It
was water.
It was water, but flammable water? I don't know.
It was both.
It was both.
And I guess we get this reveal later.
Yeah.
Big spoilers for this movie. The bog bodies, which come to life, are attracted to water. So he has a lure bucket of water hanging in a tree, which he shoots with a bow and arrow, so it drips water, so it lures the body. But also, there is a can of gasoline underneath it, and he also shoots that with a bow and arrow.
And so then he shoots a flaming bow and arrow at the bog man, who is now covered in flammable stuff, and it goes up in flames. I think he does have a pithy line, but I can't remember what it is.
He says, have a drink and a smoke or something like that. Yeah,
that's it. Something terrible. He
says
like
them in two separate lines. He says, have a drink when he hits the gasoline, and a smoke too.
Yeah.
And then he lights it on fire.
And then he also gets attacked by another bog body who's wearing like a yellow... doesn't he?
Yeah. Very confusing. A yellow raincoat. Very confusing at the beginning. And we figure out who that is later.
Cuts off her hand and throws her. Yeah, I mean, it's like an absolute sort of mindfuck of a start. All you know is that Vinnie Jones has a bow and arrow and shoots shaggy-looking Irish Sasquatches. Anyway, that's it.
It is a crazy open for this movie. You watch this and you're like, what the fuck are we watching? Ross, you glossed over this. He kills this person that is wearing like old-timey clothes. And you're like, okay, I guess that's a bog body that came back to life. And then inexplicably, a body in a yellow raincoat grabs his ankle from the water and tries biting him. And he cuts off its hand and it retreats back into the water. And then he says, give me back my boot, you bloody swamp slobber, or something like that. And then the body throws his rubber boot from out of the water and he catches it. And then he looks down and sees the hand on the ground, which he has just cut off. And he throws it back into the water. And then the hand reaches up out of the water and grabs its own hand. And then kind of does like a little nod to be like, thanks for my hand back. And then goes under the water and like... This is the opening scene of the movie.
It was so bad. Already at this point, I was cursing your name, Josh.
I love this movie. I love the next one even better, but this one is good too.
Yeah, so that's the kind of cold open of the movie, and then immediately it switches to a very small, boring lecture theatre where we have discussion of bog bodies, and we see a whole kind of slideshow of Tolland Man, I recognize, Old Crone Man, all these kind of classic bog bodies, just brown skin, dissolved bones, kind of leathery looking creatures. But he also has one in the lecture hall, which is pretty cool. He just has a bog body on the table.
Just under a sheet.
All archaeologists just have one in the back that we can bring.
Yeah. And we meet Saoirse, who is one of the lecture attendees, who, I don't know, is it supposed to sort of imply that she's like some kind of empath psychic or something? She's meant to be a bit like Troy from Star Trek, like she really feels the pain of the bog bodies or something.
Only in that one scene, though.
It was kind of unclear.
Yeah.
It never comes up again.
No.
She kind of has some weird, like, premonition kind of things, but I think, again, spoilers for this whole movie, I think that she's maybe having, like, trauma flashbacks because of what's revealed about her connection to the bog later.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, sort of, we kind of meet the lecturer who's called David, who's an expert in bog bodies. He lives and breathes bog bodies. And I think in this scene, it's also determined that Saoirse is meant to be driving him around to see the bogs or something. Again, not very clear.
Yeah, I don't know.
We get cut away again, and we meet two construction builders on a bog site who have found a bog body. There's a very, very irritating American woman who is played like for max amounts of.
She was the worst.
She was the worst. Like there was absolutely nothing redeeming about her character at all. She just complained constantly. Was annoying and loud and rude.
Just horribly mean. If that person actually existed, they would be murdered at some point. Like,
they would be a bog body.
Yeah.
But she turns up and she's all sort of like, time is money. If we tell anyone about this, they'll have archaeologists in, and it'll shut down the site. It's already overdue. We've got to build these houses. And so she instructs the builders to just dump the bog body. Right. And then we also meet two women, one American, one Irish, who are cousins. The impression is given that they're on the run. They've broken down because they're out of petrol in their car, and so they decide to walk to find somewhere with a phone so they can call for help. And so we that's the sort of setup. Then things start to happen. So the girls, the two cousins, find an old cottage and go in. The bog body that's been dumped by the building contractors through the power of cinema comes alive. No explanation is given for why it comes alive, but there's some very crap kind of special effects where it goes from being a kind of brownish withered husk to a very much not withered, chunky, kind of boxing looking guy who looks like he's maybe about 6'7", something like that. Yeah. And then things just keep happening.
I think this guy was also a footballer, wasn't he?
Maybe. I know that he played a boxer in Snatch, so he's been in another film with Vinnie Jones before, according to IMDb. But he has a classic.
Is Adam Fogarty.
Yeah, he has a classic boxer's nose. It's just all the cartilage has been destroyed from repeated punches. Okay, so here's the peril. The bog body has come alive, and it's enormous. We also see the lecturer, David and Saoirse, who are out surveying. I don't know why. I mean, it's not even a real theodolite that he's using. It's just a tripod. And he's got her holding a measuring stick. And he's just been slightly pervy. He was really kind of quite creepy.
Yeah, more than slightly.
Yeah. Very creepy. Sort of hitting on the student that's forced to spend time in the field with him. That's a very bad abuse of power. But yeah, the bog body has come alive. It's immediately killed one of the contractors. And there is quite a funny bit after that where it's walking down the kind of construction site road, and two dogs start barking at it, barking at the bog body guy, and it's like, oh, okay, what's going to go on here? And the next thing you see is he's wearing them as slippers. So he's turned these two fluffy dogs into slippers. I don't know how.
He's awful.
He doesn't have any tools with them, but he's basically skinned them and turned them into shoes, which is great. And then there's sort of more, whatever roads these people are taking, they're obviously terrible. But the horrible construction boss woman who complains about everything, her and her taxi driver, who's called Dino, end up stuck in the bog and unable to move. So they also decide to go and search for shelter. And they end up at the house that the two cousins have found. Saoirse and David are kind of arguing. I mean, he's still being very creepy in the car and like, why don't you like me kind of bullshit. And then there is, I guess this is the highlight of the writing. David very loudly says cow, and Saoirse says, what did you call me? But he goes, no, cow. And they absolutely destroy a cow that's just walking along the road. There's blood everywhere, and that's them. Their cow has destroyed their car, so they also have to get out and search for somewhere to stay. So everyone is essentially has ended up back at this cottage, which is empty, and they've somehow all found it at the same time. And the bog man is on the loose. Some boy racers randomly come up and start harassing him. I guess, that is a common problem on country roads. There are lots of boy racers around, and they probably would hassle a strange bog man that they saw. But then the bog man finds an old car and takes out all his frustration on this old car, which is quite funny. He even kind of flips it over Trog style. I mean, this is something else that we've sort of seen before. Cavemen interacting with modern technology and just going crazy on it. So now we've got everyone's found the cottage. We've got the two cousins on the run. We've got the horrible Harridan and the taxi driver, and we've got David and Saoirse are all in the cottage. And because this is clearly like in the middle of nowhere, they decide to do some foraging. They find, I guess, some potatoes, because it's Ireland, just some wild potatoes growing, and some mushrooms and stuff. And it kind of cuts between them having a nice time in this random person's cottage with the bog man going on the loose. So he gets to the shop. He seems to be kind of after water. I mean, it sounded like he was saying water at some points, though how he would understand that modern English, if he's a Bronze Age bog body, we don't really know.
I think he was actually speaking Irish. I think he was saying, what's the Irish word?
Whiska.
Whiska, yeah. Yeah, something like that.
All right. But he manages to bite into some Evian or some
I don't think that
Perrier
would
water.
work. I don't think he could do that.
No, definitely not. But he does happen to do that. And then the shopkeeper demands that he pays for it, so he ends up killing the shopkeeper.
Well, the shopkeeper
quite
first
horribly.
says something so confusing. He was like, hey, take the lid off like a good Christian or something like that.
Yeah,
Like, I was like,
wrote
what does
down.
How does that make sense?
That's how Irish people speak, apparently. But he also menaces him with a hurling stick, which he has. American sort of bodega owners have a baseball bat behind the counter. Irish spar shopkeepers have a hurling stick, and so the bogman is totally unaffected by being whacked with a hurling stick, and then jams it down the guy's throat, so he's like horribly impaled on this stick. And then he drinks some more water and disappears. And then we cut back to the cottage again, and the weirdest kind of character motivation ever, where Saoirse decides that in this cottage, which they've just turned up on, which has 4 other people in it that they've never met, when she's with this pervy lecturer who she's just met that day, she decides to have a shower. I mean,
yeah,
that makes no sense. She's not even like, she's got a tiny bit of mud on her face, and that's it.
And then he's like, the archaeologist, she's asked him, like, can you watch the door? And he says something like, I'll, is it just me or did it look like a ghost just walked through? Did you guys see that?
it did. Yeah, I saw that.
What did you see?
What the fuck was that?
There was like a white mist that passed in front of her camera. Did you see that?
No. Was it a cat, perhaps?
Did it happen only on your camera, or did it happen in real life?
Just on the camera, I think.
Maybe it was the fluff of the cat's tail that just sort of passed by.
But the cat's tail is really short in here.
I don't know.
How many cats do you have, Kim?
In the office right now? 7.
Yeah.
How many dead human skeletons are in your university? Because everybody thinks every anthropology department is haunted because of all the dead bodies in it.
I have the remains of some potential soldiers, rebels, in my office. And then my lab is right across the hallway with dozens. But I don't know.
Maybe they're having a party and the ones in your office are heading to the other one where there's more bodies. So
Yeah,
they don't
maybe.
feel so lonely.
I mean, like, we're doing a Halloween episode. It's stormy out.
Spooky stuff. All right, well, I'll keep an eye out now because I didn't see that.
It was,
Well.
yeah. Did it start from this side? Because I only saw it from this side over. Did you see it the whole way, Josh?
I just caught it out of the corner of my eye. I think I only saw it from the middle to the side.
Yeah. Okay.
Why does
let's just
spooky
ignore
shit
it.
never happen to me?
Let's just move on.
All right, so yeah,
Wait,
so
I was gonna
Saoirse
say,
decides.
so she says to him, like, can you watch the door for me? And he's like, I'll protect your honor. And then the cab driver comes up and goes, I'll
Sell
the
tickets.
rights, sell tickets. And then the guy that said he's protect your honor at that moment just walks away. And then the cab driver looks through the crack of the door. Like, it was horrible.
Yeah. Yep. It just made no sense.
Also, though, this cabin doesn't have electricity, so, like, is this a cold shower she's having? I'm surprised it even has running water.
Yeah, I would assume so.
Anyway, just as she's getting kind of undressed, she gets spooked by something at the window and screams and runs through just wearing a towel. And it's Vinnie Jones. It turns out this is his cottage. Vinnie Jones makes a reappearance and explains that it's his house and what the hell are all these people doing there. And then we cut back to the Bogman. So the Bogman has now made his way to the circus. That was one of the bits of information we got from the shopkeeper, is that he thought the Bogman had come from the circus because someone had been handing out flyers. But the Bogman has made his way to the circus. He breaks into one of the caravans and meets a little person who is like a ringmaster in the circus. I think it's what it's supposed to be. He tries to offer him a contract. Obviously, a Bogman would be a great thing to have in a circus. The Bogman asks for water, and the little person says, "This is much better," and gives him some vodka. but the Bogman does not like vodka and gets very, very angry, and I think pulls the little person's head off, including his nose. I'm not quite sure.
Oh, the nose, that was so bad.
And as he leaves, he meets two kids who are definitely not going to break into the caravan. But for unknown reasons, he kind of takes off the red nose from the person he's just killed and gives it to the kids, and then they run away.
No, but he takes the nose, so he has the clown
he takes
nose,
the nose out.
And the severed nose is still in the clown nose. And so he takes the severed nose out of the clown nose and then puts the clown nose on the kid, and then the kids just run away, because what would you do?
Yeah, that's pretty gross.
But we also get some good Irish dialogue from these kids, because one of them says, "I think he wants water. He must have been practicing fire eating and cocked it up."
Oh, I didn't hear that. But then he goes and sticks his head in the kind of water trough of the horses and drinks from that. And I'll cut back to the cottage again. The horrible woman and Dino, the taxi guy, decide to leave. The hunter, Vinnie Jones, who just calls himself Mr. Hunter, that's what he gives his name as. He does something outside. I couldn't figure out whether he's pouring petrol or water into a kind of container like he did at the beginning. And then he gives the people that have kind of squatted in his house some bracken to bed down for the night. We see that the Bogman chases the horrible woman and Dino, the taxi driver, in the woods at the night time. Saoirse Sedmahouse has a massive change of heart and gets a little bit scared at night and allows David to kind of creepily hold her so that she's not scared anymore. And then the next morning they go out to find a road to civilization, I guess, all of the survivors. David finds a Bronze Age trackway and wants to follow it, so the group splits up immediately. And while they split up, Saoirse finds Dino hiding in a hole in the ground. They find, I think it's the body of the horrible woman, sort of face down in the bog, in the water. What else happens? There's
basically people start dying one at a time at this point.
So Mr. Hunter tells Dino where he can find his taxi. So Dino and Mr. Hunter are kind of on their own, and Dino tells him a story about how he picked up a traveler and took them in the taxi. She was very drunk, said she didn't have any money but knew another way to pay. Then they have sex in the back of his cab. She says she says that Dino owes him half because he was a crap shag, which enrages him. And so he chucks her out of his cab, slams the door, and drives off. And then hears a clunking sound behind him. He thinks that the woman has slashed his tires, but he gets out and discovers that actually when he slammed the door, he caught her coat in the door. And he's dragged this poor woman a mile through rocky road and has totally killed her.
And she didn't make a noise. She didn't make a sound.
And she didn't make a noise or take her coat off or have her coat ripped.
Yeah.
So that's a kind of, I think this is when it's sort of in the writer's mind, this is when it all comes together. So now we have an explanation. Mm-hmm. The bog has affected these people and they've all sort of hurt people in the bog.
And then everybody starts to have a story and starts to confess that they've killed somebody. And it's like, I guess, unless you have this conversation, you don't know if the room, like if every single person in the room that you're sharing has killed somebody. Because it kind of seems like everybody's like, there was this one time.
Yeah. You have one of the cousins, the American cousin, goes for help because, the Irish cousin fell in the bog and almost drowned and had to be rescued. And so the American cousin goes for help. And her plan is to follow the Bronze Age trackway in this plantation forest. The Saoirse and David kiss because obviously they have to.
Yeah, they're the main characters.
Yeah. And although I cared not even slightly about David. David kind of decides to go out and help because Saoirse and the Irish cousin are not doing too well. And as David goes out, he meets the Bogman who's menacing the American cousin. Mr. Hunter's there as well. He shoots David tries to make friends with the Bogman. He somehow intuits that this is a Bronze Age person that's been resurrected by the power of the bog. And so he puts down his stick weapon and holds out his hand to try and make peace with the Bogman. and the bogman holds it out his hand and is about to shake his hand when Mr. Hunter shoots him, and that enrages him, and so somehow the bogman decapitates the American cousin and picks up her head and throws it around and shows no effect from being shot. So that's not great. So that's another person dead. And then we cut back to the cottage, and the close to death Irish cousin tells Saoirse about why her and her cousin were out there. They were driving along and ran over an elderly turf cutter in the bog and just buried him in the bog. So potentially that's another bog body that we've not seen yet that could come back to life. Mr. Hunter sort of takes David into his confidence and says how they have to kill the bogman by putting up the water traps for them because they're really attracted to water, something which there's obviously a deficiency of in a fucking bog. Yeah, that makes no sense that they are attracted to water where they're literally surrounded by water all over the place. But this is how he does it. He puts up a bucket with a hole in it, and the water drips out, and that attracts the bogman. And then he shoots him, but because of the power of the bog, he kind of immediately. I mean, it's not properly explained we know how to kill vampires, we know how to kill werewolves, we know how to kill zombies, but it feels like this film assumes that you know how to kill a bogman completely.
Yeah, of course. You have to kill a bogman with fire. Nothing, spears, bullets don't kill them. You have to kill them with fire. Everybody knows that, Ross.
Well, but then he also says you have to sort of hammer the stake through his heart or something. Like the first time they try and kill him.
I don't know why he was telling him to do that, because obviously that wasn't going to do anything, because later on and earlier we see him get shot with guns and we see him get stabbed with a spear and it just heals automatically. So I don't know why he was telling him. Maybe he was going to hammer it through him to get him stuck to the ground
and
so
then
that
set
he
him
could
on fire.
light him on fire.
Yeah. The bogman gets shot by Mr. Hunter. David has a big pointy stick, but he wooses out of skewering the bogman, so the bogman just gets up and runs off, and David runs back to the cottage, abandoning Mr. Hunter. He gets back there and discovers that Mallory's dead. He's very cleverly banged on the door in the weirdest way. I don't think I've ever seen anyone banging on a door the way he does it in this film. It's like he uses his forearm or something. Very odd. And then in their only kind of protective place, this cottage, he decides to break the door down so he can get in. And it's just one stupid decision after another. And when he gets in, he discovers that the Irish cousin who had a name, which was Mallory, apparently, she's died of bog or whatever it was that she was sick with. We get a long story from Saoirse about how she ended up killing her horrible uncle. I mean, there's such wild shifts in tone in this film. It's nuts.
Yeah, but did you miss the part where he's banging on the door and she's inside scared of him banging on the door, so she's holding a spear, and when he bangs the door open, he stabs himself on her spear?
Yeah, that's another thing.
But then I guess he wakes up the next morning and that's okay, and then she tells him the story.
he's healed by the power of the bog or something. Yeah, he kind of bursts through the door.
I guess so.
And impales himself on Saoirse's stick. That's not even a metaphor. It's just really weird. And then we have this massive tonal shift where it's been, these people are being menaced by bogmen, to a really harrowing story about how Saoirse got adopted by her aunt and uncle, who were horrible people who kind of molested her, and her uncle would wait until her aunt was away and then find her, and she had a baby and she buried it in the bog. I mean, it's properly kind of really kind of horrific stuff just in the middle of this schlocky, crappy horror film. And we discover that Saoirse had a baby through incest with her uncle, which died at birth and was buried in the bog. And then the uncle found her burying the baby and tried to molest her again. And then she killed him with a knife, cutting his throat, and left him in the bog. So Saoirse's got all this trauma related to the bog, and so it's kind of called her back. I don't know. Anyway, the kind of stomach impaling that David suffered is miraculously healed, and they go out to kind of confront the bogman, who's not broken in during the night, but they see that Mr. Hunter has been impaled again. There's a lot of impaling in this film. He's been impaled on a tree, and the bogman's just tormenting him by kind of wiggling the stick around while it's poking through his stomach. And he's kind of got his gun just out of reach. I think Saoirse stabs the Bogman, but he immediately heals because he's can't be killed by pointy sticks. The hunter reaches his gun and shoots the Bogman, but again, it does no effect. Then Mr. Hunter shoots himself for no reason after telling David that fire water is, the most kind of oblique and useless thing he could have said with his dying breath was fire water.
What he was saying was that he had poured gasoline into the water supply of the cabin, which was inexplicable when he did that earlier. Like, why are you pouring gasoline into like the water reservoir? But that's what he's telling him. He's put gasoline into the water, and now you can kill him with the gasoline water.
Yeah. So the Bogman breaks in to the cottage and is about to kill Saoirse and David when he notices the dripping shower. And we've seen before, like, one of the few things that's been established is that yes, the Bogman likes water, but he's very sensitive to things that aren't water, that look like water. So somehow, despite knowing that vodka was terrible, he slurps down this gasoline water in the in the shower, and then David takes a match and flicks it at him while saying "dinner is served," which just makes no goddamn sense.
So weird.
It's not funny. It's not pithy. It has no relation to anything else that's happened in the film.
No, it's not a callback to anything.
He lights the Bogman on fire, and the Bogman kind of runs out on fire. He says something to David, which I think sounded like Poke Mahone, which is Irish for kiss my arse. That doesn't appear in the IMDb ratings, but I think that's what the Bogman says. And then he kind of runs into the bog, and one of the only bits of kind of information we have is that things that are buried in the bog come back to life. His flames are extinguished. He's in the bog. Is he not just going to come back to life? But no. Then David and Saoirse walk off into the sunset, and that's the end of the film. Jesus. It was terrible. It was absolutely terrible.
Do we have any inaccuracies to discuss in this film?
Well, there's no reason why a bog... I guess it's like mummies. Like, why does a bog body come back and act like an ogre? Right? Like, it's just it's a human.
It's caveman bingo again. It's just, they're from not the present, therefore they must be a kind of walking monstrosity that just wants to kill people.
Yeah. Do you know what it reminded me of is Neander Jin, in the sense that there's no explanation for why he's back. In Neander Jin, the Neanderthal in the past, there's like several Neanderthals doing some sort of dance around a fire, and he clacks two rocks together, and then he travels through time to the present inexplicably. And this one, bog bodies just come back to life and inflate. That's just what bog bodies do. You don't need to know why that's happening.
No, it's just
they're
magic.
Always murderous. They just have this drive.
Murderous Bronze Age.
And they murder.
People.
They murder murderers, right? So that's why Cersei didn't get murdered, because she did kill somebody, but she had to self-defense. So she wasn't like a target like the other people who did it like in a shitty way, accidental or whatever.
David was just a dick, but he got like the most damage. He hadn't killed anyone. The horrible
in the movie logic, why is he there, right?
Yeah. Maybe just to give explanation about bog bodies, I don't know. The horrible American boss woman, she hasn't killed anyone, and she's like the first person to die.
She totally has killed somebody.
She has killed somebody, but she died too fast to give us that backstory.
Right. She would be the type of person that would sign off on like shitty construction on a building and have it collapse or something, right?
True.
Yeah, I don't know. It didn't make sense. And then whoever wrote this movie does not like women, because all of the female characters are awful.
And all the male characters are awful too.
But it does pass the Bechdel test, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the two.
There's more female characters than male characters.
And they talk about, we don't even have a main male character, unless it's the Bogman.
I think the archaeologist is the main character.
Yeah.
Because he's the hero, right?
Well, maybe we can talk about what this movie thinks about archaeologists, because our archaeologist is sort of the exposition machine at the beginning of the movie. A lot of these movies, we get this early scene where they sort of explain all the archaeology. And we have that lecture. A lecture is a great way for a movie to give us all the real background science.
Yeah.
And so in his lecture, I wrote down everything he says. He says, bog bodies are the naturally preserved bodies of human beings preserved in the mineral-rich waters of peat bogs. That's not why peat bogs preserve bodies, not because they're mineral-rich.
No. Although they are mineral-rich because they've got like tannins and stuff in it. And so it's technically correct, but it's just not relevant.
Yeah. They preserve bodies because they're acidic and because they're low oxygen environments, right?
Mm-hmm.
He continues, he says, they mostly come from the Bronze and Iron Age around 2,000 years ago, but cover a time span from prehistory to the present. I think that's correct. They're found all over Northern Europe, particularly Ireland and Denmark, where this example was unearthed in 1953. And then he goes into just a slideshow of, here's another. And his tone when he's giving this lecture is so ominous. Everything he says actually is pretty ominous. And the lecture hall is like, it's in this really dim blue, scary lighting. So he's like doing this slideshow of bog bodies and they're like gruesome looking bodies. So he's like, here's another, and here's another, and another. And then he's like, but let's move on to the real thing. And he unveils this gross body under this. And it seems like it smells because everyone in the room, when he lifts up the sheet, is like making these grimacing faces.
Yeah, you would smell a bog body sitting there.
And then he goes on to talk about this body. He says that they've done a forensic archaeology analysis, but that's not what forensic archaeology is. Forensic archaeology, well, forensics is the application of scientific methods to the law or to criminal cases. That's what forensics means. So he's not doing forensics if he's not trying to solve a crime. He's just doing regular archaeology of this body. In my notes, it says that the body is 220 years old. Is that a typo, or was this body actually only 220 years old?
I don't know. I didn't recognize the one he was talking about, but
I don't think it was real.
He's talking about the one on the table.
Yeah, I don't think
it's
it's a real. I don't think it's a real one.
No, but they have been found like murder victims in the bog from recent times. So you would actually maybe do some forensic archaeology on those kind of bodies, but that would maybe just be regular forensic medicine because they're recent murder victims. I don't know.
Well, we can say forensic archaeology is the application of the methods and techniques of archaeology to forensic investigations. And so if you find the remains of a body and you do sort of an archaeology style excavation where you're, digging square trenches and you're taking samples like that, then you're doing forensic archaeology. But if the body is 220 years old, that's not forensics because that's way outside of the range of any legal interest. So they're just doing archaeology. He says that they did a DNA analysis, and the DNA analysis shows that she was local. Ross, you're the DNA guy. Is DNA analysis the best way to establish whether or not she was local?
No. They could have done that with like isotope work, like strontium isotopes or something like that.
That's what you'd traditionally do in archaeology to determine if somebody was local.
Can you get DNA from a bog body, do you think?
I would be very doubtful. I don't know of any studies, just thinking off the top of my head, any DNA studies. I imagine that highly acidic would be bad for them. But also, more than that, the kind of tannins and other kind of complex biomolecules would mess up your polymerase and not really allow you to do any amplification.
He goes on to say that stomach contents tell us she had a rich diet and probably died in autumn when food was plentiful. And I guess a lot of the bog bodies do have like preserved stomach contents so that you can actually tell exactly what their last meal was, right?
Yeah.
But nothing he says here actually makes sense. Stomach contents tell us she had a rich diet. Well, you can't tell how rich the diet was based on a sample size of one meal, I think.
No. She had a rich meal, maybe.
She died probably in autumn when food was plentiful. So like, she had food in her belly, which means that she wasn't starving, which means it was autumn because in the spring nobody eats. Like what? I think that you would tell what season she died in based on the type of food in her belly, which would tell you what time of the growing season it was, right?
Yes.
Then he goes on to say that bog bodies often show signs of ritual torture before death, and I think that's true. I think there's a lot, like Toland man had like a rope around his neck, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that is something that's true.
Tied hands and cut marks. I think one had the slit throat.
Yeah. I think that's particularly true for like the Iron Age ones, because obviously bog bodies cover a long period of time. So like the recent ones, like the ones from World War II, where or World War I maybe, there are bog bodies that are much more recent, but obviously they've died under different circumstances than the Iron Age ones. And then he goes on to say some specific details about this fictional bog body, and this is where it gets even more confusing to me, because he's suggesting that this body was sacrificed, and so Saoirse asks him, what did she do in order to be sacrificed? And he says, well, I'm just an archaeologist, so I can only speculate. And this is where this movie is the worst. I think he's the worst written archaeologist we've ever seen.
Yeah.
If you as an archaeologist aren't qualified to say something, then who is the person who is supposed to be qualified here? He's like, I'm just an archaeologist. No, you are an archaeologist. You are the person who is qualified to speak here. You're not just an archaeologist in this context. And I can only speculate. No, you're not speculating as an archaeologist. You are making reasoned interpretations based on data. And so he says stuff like this all throughout the fucking movie. But he says, I believe some bog bodies were sacrifices to fertility gods to ensure a good harvest. And maybe this is sort of stretching what a fertility god is, but would you call the god of the harvest a fertility god, or would you call a fertility god the god that you'd pray to for, or you'd sacrifice to for like having babies? Is that, would a fertility god be the harvest god?
I'm sure that certainly in some cultures there's the same god fulfills both functions, and there's certainly overlap in their kind of powers. But
then he says that she was sacrificed because she was being punished for a crime. And so, like, was she a sacrifice to a fertility god for a good harvest, or was she a punishment for was she being punished for a crime? I mean, those things don't have to be mutually exclusive, but it seems like he's kind of talking around all over the place without having any real interpretation of anything going on.
It's ritual. Surely that's what archaeologists say.
Later on, he has more of this nonsense talk where they're out doing their field survey, and he says, well, it's just a theory, but I think ancient people saw the bog as an evil place. And like, this is not what theories are. This is not how you theorize. This is not how you do anything in archaeology. And he says something about how he wanted to do some preliminary field work before he wrote any papers. And like, well,
yes, of course
you do all
that.
the field work before you write the papers.
Yeah.
Why would you be writing papers without doing any field work?
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
Yeah, here I wrote down the quote. This is just a pet theory of mine, and I wanted to test it before writing any papers.
Before he just sat down and starts writing ideas, get published.
So they're doing some sort of field survey, and he's using an optical level, which you mentioned, Ross. It's a simple optical level which surveyors would use, or even people at a construction site. We use pretty much exactly the same thing at our site sometimes. And so it's just basically a telescope on a tripod with a crosshairs, and it's set so that it always looks perfectly horizontal, and then somebody else holds a big measuring staff, and you use it for measuring variable elevations above the ground. And so this is something that we would use on an excavation or possibly a field survey, I guess, if you wanted to map changes in elevation.
But you wouldn't use it to scope a student's cleavage.
No.
No. And you know what? You can't use it for that because the way he uses it is he starts on, we see through his scope, and he's looking at her cleavage, and he pans upward to his face. And that's not how an optical level works, because it's always set to horizontal. So you can't pan up and down. You can only pan side to side with it. Anyway, so yeah, the archaeologist in this movie is, I think, what the average person, when they think about what a theory is, they are thinking about what a conspiracy theory is. He's basically a conspiracy theorist, except that he doesn't really have a traditional conspiracy theory. He's just like, I have some crazy ideas about bogs. I'm going to test them by measuring some elevations of a hill in a bog, and that's basically his entire test of his theory.
Yeah.
But weirdly, it turns out that however crazy his theories are, they're not quite so crazy as the movie world that he finds himself in, where bog bodies come back to life.
Yeah, that's the real paper.
Yeah. Imagine that must really mess up your radiocarbon dates.
Yeah, it would.
Has anyone done a paper on how would you radiocarbon date like a reanimated mummy or a zombie or something like that?
Well, it would be that the bones would eventually change to being nowadays, but the teeth would still stay ancient. So if you did enamel versus osteoid, it would be, that's where you would see the difference, right?
Yeah.
Because enamel, for the listeners, enamel doesn't regrow, but bone remodels all the time.
There are, I mean, the last time I thought there were problems with radiocarbon dating enamel, that it's a bit more difficult than like doing a collagen radiocarbon date. Like, well, was it apatite, that the mineral that they get from enamel, hydroxyapatite, something like that?
Well, hydroxyapatite's in the bone.
And
enamel.
Okay.
And enamel.
It's the same mineral.
It's the mineral, yeah. But I think if you couldn't do it with enamel, then eventually you would just have, that person would just eventually become dated to nowadays. But if you could do like hair versus bone, maybe that would show, because the hair would then grow quickly, and so the hair would be dated now, and where the bone wouldn't be, as long as you caught the bone before it remodeled.
I think there is definitely a paper here, because like it depends on the supernatural entity. So something like a mummy, which doesn't eat, its radiocarbon would be fine, because even though it's in the modern period, it's not breathing, it's not eating, so its radiocarbon's not getting remodeled. Something like a vampire, which is taking in blood, or a zombie, which is taking in brains, and metabolizing that's going to very quickly result in radiocarbon turnover, which is going to make things difficult. So
they would also be changing trophic levels too, right?
Yeah, that's true. That would mess up their stable isotopes as well. So I guess the conclusion of our paper, our pet theory, can be that if you have a choice of which supernatural reanimated entity to date, go for a mummy, because they are not going to change so quickly as a vampire or a zombie.
Yeah.
What's the best journal for publishing speculative biology of Halloween monsters?
Annals of Improbable Research, maybe?
That's what I was thinking of.
I'm up for writing it if you are, Ross.
Yeah, for sure. We could get Charlie on board to talk about the isotopes and how they would get remodeled by brain ingestion or hemoglobin ingestion, that kind of thing.
Yes. It'll melt Una's brain that we wrote this paper.
All the more reason to do it.
Well, what other notes do we have about this movie? What else do we have to get into this episode?
Well, so I was saying about how I graphed Vinnie Jones's IMDb scores. He's done like 110 films, I think. And of his 110 films, this is in the bottom 10% of his IMDb scores. So there's like 9 films in his filmography that have a worse rating than this one, which I think says quite a lot.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy cow. I hope he has fun doing them.
I think he does. I think he must do. Or otherwise, why would he bother? Apart from the money, I guess.
Pocket change, yeah.
I have never been to a Northern European bog, but one of the questions I had is where this construction crew is building houses early in this movie. They seem to be up on a hill, and can you have a bog at the top of a hill? Wouldn't a bog be in the low-lying area between the hills?
Yeah, you'd think. I guess, yeah, and it's also, I mean, bogs are not naturally great places to build houses.
Well, yeah, that's the strange thing, is that they would have had to clear that land and drain it and sort of, landscape the whole thing before they started construction on the houses.
I'm not saying that it wouldn't happen. I've got a friend that works in the council involved with planning applications, and yeah, there's very little that will stop. If the developers want to develop it and turn it into houses, then councils are very unlikely to say no, even if it is on a floodplain, underneath an unstable cliff, on top of an unstable cliff, in the middle of a bog. Doesn't matter if the developers are going to front the cash, then it'll get the go ahead.
I don't know if I've told this story before, and it's only tangentially related here at all, but I grew up in a kind of swampy area, not really a bog, but it was, very flat, and the water would pool in the spring and stuff like that. And I think it was the year I graduated high school. My dad was burning some old hay. I think this was in like March. So like still snow on the ground. He's got this old hay yard. He's got to get rid of this hay before the new season, which is what you do. You just burn a big pile of hay.
That's such a dad thing, though, isn't it?
Yeah. And he started a peat fire on this section of our land. And so peat is this sort of like half decomposed plant material that you find in bogs. And it's
a very good fuel.
In these bogs, they harvest it. Yeah, it's a good fuel. It's good for gardening. It's also terrible for the environment because it's carbon that's locked up in the ground. And once you extract it, it starts decomposing again. It releases a lot of carbon dioxide. And if you burn it, obviously, it releases a lot of carbon dioxide. So he accidentally started this peat fire on our field here on this sort of swampy patch of land. And this fire burned for 8 months. It would smolder underground, and then every couple of weeks, a fire would pop up, and we'd have to go put out a fire on our field. God. And then we get that fire out, and then a few weeks later, it would pop up again. And literally, this fire went from like March or April until like October or November, until the snow came the next season.
Wow.
It was crazy.
Whoa.
But you never found any bog bodies in your garden?
No. Well, who knows if we've got bog bodies? If we've got peat in this swampy land, maybe we've got some bog bodies under there. Who knows?
But your dad saved you all by starting the fire, so they've all been killed by the fire.
There's your answer. Just burn down the whole bog, and then you're fine.
That's cool. I mean, so the guy that the cousins run over in the film, he's a peat cutter as well. He's got a peat cutting tool, which they talk about briefly. But certainly in kind of rural Ireland and rural Scotland, it was the fuel of choice. This is before coal distribution was a thing, and when particularly in the kind of parts of Scotland and Ireland that have peat, wood isn't really a sustainable source of lighting, of fuel for your fire. So traditionally, certainly in the Highlands where I'm from, the traditional kind of 19th century house was called a black house, which is a one-level kind of stone-walled, thatched roof house with a hole in the center of the roof and a peat fire in the middle. No chimney or anything, just the fire in the middle, and the smoke from the peat would go out, and you'd spend your summers cutting peat and letting it dry for the winter. And that's how a lot of these bog bodies were first found, by peat cutters who were doing it to get fuel. They'd find the bodies while they're doing that. It's been mostly mechanized now, but for most of history, it was done by hand. Even within living memory in the west coast of Scotland, people would hand cut peat using that particular kind of shovel-shaped tool, whose name I've forgotten.
They do say the name of it in the movie, I think, but I can't remember what it was. Peat, of course, is also how you get the distinctive flavor of Scotch whiskey from drying the malt on a peat fire. Yeah,
and quite often the water that they use for the whiskey has a kind of brownish tint to it, because it's travelled through peaty ground and taken on some of the tannins that give it that kind of nice malty color. That's why, when I was a kid, I was like, why don't they just send like a submarine into Loch Ness to look for the monster and then prove it that way? But the visibility in Loch Ness is like 3 feet because it's so full of peat that's run off from the hills that you can't see Jack, let alone a monster, which is definitely there.
We have some Loch Ness monster movies. Maybe we could do one of those sometime.
Yeah, that would be fun.
I love Nessie. Everybody thinks that's what we study anyways, so.
Absolutely.
Late in the movie, when everyone's revealing their secrets, and the I was calling her the business bitch all the way through, she reveals that she had accidentally dug up a bog body at some point in the past in the course of her construction. And David, the archaeologist, gets upset about this because he's like, how come I've never heard about this? I know everybody that's been dug up in the last 20 years. And then he lists off a few names, and they're very Irish, so I don't know how to spell these, but I wrote them out phonetically. He says Cavan Man and Donaghilty Man. And I was wondering if you know whether or not those are real bog bodies, because I couldn't find them on the Wikipedia list of bog bodies, which is a page that exists.
There's certainly Cavan Man is one.
Maybe that's what he said. Maybe I misheard it. Cavan?
Yeah, there are lots. I mean, he must have a pretty eidetic memory if he can remember all nearly 2,000 bog bodies that have been found.
Cavan is here on the list, so that is one. The other one was Donaghilty Man.
I mean, that certainly sounds Irish, like you said.
The problem is that I can't read any of these Irish names on this list, so maybe one of these is pronounced something like Donaghilty.
Possibly. I'm just going through the Wikipedia bog bodies list. There's Derry Cashel, Derry McQuirk, Derry Varrogue, Drumkeira. But my Irish pronunciation is also pretty bad, so yeah.
Well, maybe the first one at least was real. What was it? Cavan?
This is riveting podcasting, guys.
I know. We're
well. I cut out the silences. No one's ever going to be able to tell that we took a break here to just read Wikipedia. And then one more thing is that he talks about these bog roads, which were made of wood. And I got the impression from the way he was talking about them that they were, it sounds like he's describing them as like secret roads that were sort of buried in the bog so that you had to know where the path was. And if you stepped off of it, you would fall into the bog and drown. But as far as I know, bog roads were just very obvious roads made of logs.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Did you get the same impression that he was talking about how like the bog road was like half buried and secret, and that you had to know where it was so that you could follow it?
Yeah, he was trying to make it a little bit supernatural, right? Like in a scary, spooky space, not just an environment that people live in and around.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I've reached the end of my notes. Do we have anything else to say about this movie?
No, I'm surprised we talked this much about it.
Yeah, just don't waste your time like we did.
Yeah.
It is, ostensibly a horror movie, but that initial scene with Vinnie Jones fighting with these bog people really sets the tone for this movie. And so when I watched that, I knew, this is going to be a hilarious movie and not a very scary movie at all.
Yeah, there's nothing scary at all in it. Apart from the dialogue, how bad it is.
Yeah, and some of the acting.
And the acting.
Well, usually when we're recording this podcast, we're sort of flying by the seat of our pants, and we come up with a new episode sort of on the fly. This time we've actually already watched our next movie, and so we can say that if you tune in 2 weeks from now, we are going to be watching the movie The Lost Tribe, and we've all watched at least part of this one. So stay tuned for that one in 2 weeks for another scary Halloween movie.
By the way, we are not recommending you watch it. I don't want that liability.
I'll recommend that you watch it. It's a great movie.
All right, I'm gonna stop recording there.
Do you have questions, comments, or movie requests? We want to hear from you. Find us on Blue Sky and Facebook at SOTSA Podcast. Send us an email to screensofthestoneage@gmail.com or visit our website at screensofthestoneage.com.
This has been a presentation of the ArchPodNet Podcast Network. Visit us on the web for show notes and other podcasts at www.archpodnet.com. Contact us at chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com.